What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we are going to talk about the Apocalypse Saga. We're going to break down this video in two sections. On the first section we are going to talk about how the Apocalypse Saga is broken down and what you should do in order to get your Apocalypse as big as possible, because the progress for Apocalypse is not locked behind the entire campaign. So we're going to take a look at that first, and then we're going to take a look at what are my final ISO 8 choices for all Horseman characters and all the additional characters that you need for the Apocalypse Saga campaign. So as always, if you like information on these videos, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure you smash that like button like a boss. Okay, let's get started. Let's talk first about the Apocalypse Saga. So to start off the Apocalypse Saga, you have to finish all the other sagas at 3 stars, at least on heroic difficulty. So it's very important. If you don't have the sagas at 3 stars, you are not going to be able to progress towards the Apocalypse Saga. Then you have different sets of difficulties, but the difficulty you are going to take a look first is going to be the heroic difficulty, where you need the Gear T16 and ISO 8 Blue level 4 on all the characters required for the Apocalypse Saga. So this is going to be the 4 Horseman teams plus the 3 first original characters of Marvel Strike Force. So that's going to be a total of 23 characters that need to be at Gear T16 and ISO 8 Blue level 4 in case you want to unlock Apocalypse. Then if you want to get Apocalypse maxed out in terms of yellow stars and red stars, well, you actually can't, because there are not enough shards to do that, but we're going to take a look at that in a second. Okay, so if you go to msf.gg or marvelstrikeforce.com now, and if you go to the games section and then you press on campaigns, you're going to have access to this section right here of the website. And on this section of the website you can take a look at the Apocalypse campaign, and you can see the different difficulties that are available, and you can also see the rewards that you have on these campaigns. So if you go to the heroic difficulty, you are going to see that on the nodes number 1 to number 4, you're going to get ISO 8 Blue level 4, and then beyond that, from mission number 5 to number 9 or number 8, there is no mission number 9, by the way. It's a bug on the website. So if you complete that one, then we are going to be able to obtain ISO 8 Blue level 5. Yes, ISO 8 Blue level 5. So this is going to be extremely important, because depending on where you spend this ISO 8 Blue level 5, you might be able to get Apocalypse stronger than other people. So have that in mind. Okay, so let's go back to the heroic difficulty. So the first time where you get any shards for Apocalypse is going to be on mission 8 of the heroic difficulty, and this is going to give you 300 shards plus 2 red stars for Apocalypse. That's going to allow you to unlock Apocalypse at 5 yellow stars and 2 red stars. Okay, now when you go back and when you take a look at the apocalyptic difficulty, this one requires Gear Tier 17 and ISO 8 Blue level 5. And you can see that the missions are in order. So if you take a look, on the first mission you require Pestilence, you require the Darkhold team, then you require the Unlimited X-Men, then you require the Gamma team, then you require the Dead Sea team, and then you require all the 3 original Marvel Strike Force characters. We need the Gastro, we need the Deadpool, and we need the Spider Weaver. So this is going to be very important, because we are assuming, this is 100% assumption, we don't know this for sure, it was not confirmed yet by any of Scopely or Boundless representatives, but we are assuming that you'll be able to clear the first node even if you don't have all the characters unlocked. Once again, this is an assumption, because we don't know for sure if it's going to be possible or not. But in case it's possible, if you clear the first mission, you're going to be able to get 3 red stars up from 2 from Apocalypse. And you're also going to get some isolate blue level 4 and isolate blue level 5 that you need to gear up your character. So it's going to be important for you to complete this in order for you to progressively get your Apocalypse stronger. This is very, very different from what we had in the past, from like Dark Dimension, where at the end of the run you'd get a bunch of rewards at the same time, and that would allow you to unlock Dormammu, Doctor Doom or Ultron, and then on the second pass would allow you to maximize Dormammu, Doctor Doom and Ultron respectively. Okay, so as you can see, if you clear the first node of the Apocalypse Saga on Apocalyptic difficulty, you are going to get additional red stars. This means that you need to complete your Darkhold team with Isolate Blue level 5 Gear Tier 17 first. Is this going to be important? Well, if you want to maximize the power of Apocalypse, yes. Is this the best option for your account in terms of competitiveness in Cosmic Crucible and Alliance Wars and so on? Definitely not. Definitely not. Should you gear up first Red Hulk or should you gear up first Scarlet Witch? Well, it seems that we are getting more value for Apocalypse by gearing up Scarlet Witch, but in terms of our account, let's be honest, gearing up Scarlet Witch first instead of Red Hulk, that's going to be a big mistake. But unfortunately, this is the setup that we have, whereas it seems that's our assumption. Now, other thing that we need to talk about is in regards to the character shards for Apocalypse, because there are not enough shards to maximize Apocalypse, and this is going to be a big deal because we have seen that on the Heroic campaign you are going to be able to get 310 shards, and that will allow you to unlock Apocalypse at 5 yellow stars. So this is the first node. You cannot see, oh you can see the one right here. So this is the first node of the Apocalyptic difficulty, and there are no shards. Let's take a look at the second node. This is important. This is actually important. So on the second node there are 0 shards. On the third node there are 100 shards. So this is the Hulk Saga. This is the Gamma team, but once again you need unlimited. You need all of them in order to reach this. So here you can get 100 shards for Apocalypse. So that means you are going to get 100 shards of a 5 yellow star. Then we have a 4 red stars. So you're going to have 5 yellow stars, 4 red stars plus 100 shards. Then we're going to move on, and when you move on, the rewards are actually lower in value. It's quite surprising. On these node number 5, node number 6, and node number 7, the value of the rewards quite deepen in terms of how trash they are. Okay, so that was node number 5, and now we have node number 6, and keep in mind we just have 100 shards for Apocalypse. Then we have node number 7. Once again, we have only 100 shards for Apocalypse. And now we have the final node number 8, and that's going to give us 200 shards for Apocalypse. So what the F is going on? After node number 4, the rewards, they lower in value. And if you count, there are only 300 shards, and 300 shards is not enough. A total of what you need for the maximum Apocalypse, you need 300 for the 5 yellow stars, then you need 200 for the 6 yellow stars, and then you need the initial 300 for the 7 yellow stars. So there are 200 shards missing right now. I already reported this to community manager Archangel. He must be baffled because he gave no answer, but this is very concerning. Like, if you already have this in-game, if you already have this on the database, where are the 200 shards missing for Apocalypse? So are the whales and the krakens going to be able to unlock the 7 yellow stars Apocalypse? No one really knows. This is all speculation based on the information we have, but the situation is looking very, very grim. Once again, took them 1 year to get to this point, and it seems that it's still going to be an absolute fuckfest. But let's move on beyond this topic, and let's talk about my isolate choices and why I choose this isolate for specific characters. Okay, so let's fix this cable. Great. First off, we are going to talk about Darkhold, and keep in mind, this is always based on your playstyle. Isolate choices, they are always based on your playstyle. Isolate choices are always based on what you prefer, and in some scenarios one isolate choice might give you a winning condition, Other isolate choices might give you another winning condition. So once again, it all comes down to the play style. Now, I like Wong as a striker because I like the additional damage that he does, and I also like the fact that when he double taps, he clears 2 negative effects rather than 1. That's usually a big deal, especially if you are facing any kind of teams that apply slow to your characters. Then on Scarlet Witch, she doesn't do much. She applies negative effects. The basic attack is very, very important because it applies defense down, offense down, and slow for 2 turns. That's massive, and for that reason, I like her as a skirmisher. Some people like her as a raider because she has the chance of applying vulnerabilities with her ultimate. That's okay, but to be honest, I don't see it making a difference. She could also be a healer because she does the healing with a special, but once again, it comes down to your playstyle. If you think that the healing is going to help you out, that's okay. I usually prefer to focus on negative effects, and for that I need as much focus as possible, and that's why I have her as a skirmisher. With Strange Supreme, I have him as a raider, and the reason why I have him as a raider, it's because he already has additional focus on his special, and the basic, I don't use the basic often enough to change it to skirmisher or striker. It's a possibility using as a skirmisher, it's a possibility using as a striker, but based on his kit, based on the fact that he has 90% crit chance, the Raider Isolate plus his ultimate can be a good winning condition, and that's why I have him as a Raider. With Morgan Le Fay as a striker, like, she's the best striker in the game, so let's not go too further deep why you need her as a striker. She steals health with her basic. She also copies positive effects from the enemies. She also clears positive effects on the enemies. And if you have her as a striker, you are going to do that twice. If you have her as a striker with Isolate level 5, that's going to give additional 15% damage over max health, which is very, very high in terms of damage, and 50% of that will convert as a healing, so she's one of the best strikers in the game, probably second to Omega Red. And finally, we have Agatha Harkness as a skirmisher. Can she be a raider? Yes, sure, she can be a raider because you are going to benefit out of her passive attack, you are going to benefit out of her ultimate, you are going to benefit out of her special, but in my opinion, based on my playstyle, I like to have guaranteed stun on her special. That stun is very, very important. And another thing about the raider, and in terms of the damage output, is that many teams that have deflects, they stop all kinds of crits. So it really depends on the match you are facing, so I like to play it safe and I like to go for the stun rather than going for the additional damage. So this is my final isolate choices for the Darkhold. Let's move on to the next team. And on the next team we have the Unlimited X-Men. And on the Unlimited X-Men, I like Gambit as a raider because whenever he crits, he gives evades to the team, and I also think he gives speed up on Cosmic Crucible, so that's going to be very, very important. Every time you have a character that gets benefits out of crits beyond damage, you kind of want to maximize that situation, especially if it activates for the entire team. If he gives evades to himself or something, that's something you have to consider. But if he's giving evades to the entire team, then it's definitely something that you are going to prioritize. In terms of Sunfire, he's kind of slow, but he does a lot of damage, and his basic attack does massive amount single target damage, and I really like to focus on single target damage, because if you remove your main threats from the field, then you have a shield time where you have to not worry about other enemies. So I think Striker is very, very important on Sunfire, and that also matches with the good multipliers that he has on his basic attack. With Dazzler, some people like to use Dazzler as a raider. I like to use her as a skirmisher, and the reason why people use her as a raider, it's because she has the chance of critting on her basic, and if you crit on her basic, you can apply blind to the enemy. But if you think about it, Dazzler will only use her basic on the third turn. If you still didn't win by the third turn, there is no point on applying blind to anyone. So I'm going to focus instead on applying blinds with a special or applying ability block with the ultimate. And for that, I'm going to increase her focus as much as possible to make sure that against enemies with a lot of resistance, like Darkhold and Morgan Le Fay, I'm going to make sure that that ability block lands, otherwise I will lose the match. Applying that ability block, applying the blind with the special is a winning condition, and if you fail to do so, you are going to cripple yourself. And yeah, that blind on the basic, it's great, but let's be honest, third turn basic, it's not very convenient. Now, in terms of Phantom X, it doesn't really need any kind of special ISO weight. I like to use him as a raider because whenever he crits with his basic, he applies defense down to the enemies. This requires him to do counterattacks. It's like, he doesn't have a good ISO weight choice because, let's be honest, Phantom X is a trash character, so it doesn't really matter what you use on him. You can use as a healer, striker, skirmisher, whatever you use. I think Raider is slightly better, but it's not like it really matters. And then Rogue, I have her as a skirmisher because you want the negative effects on the special to land, you want the stun on the ultimate to land, and the basic, it's okay, but the basic doesn't do anything special, it's just damage. So I rather focus on the main abilities, the special and the ultimate, because yes, if you apply those negative effects, if you apply the trauma, if you apply the ability block, that's definitely going to be a winning condition. Okay, let's move on to the Gamma team, and this is going to be controversial, but once again, it's all based on your playstyle. It's all based on your playstyle, it's all based, do you use the full team? Do you use only half of this team? That's going to be important. So, first off, Braun is a trash character. Let's be honest, Braun is a trash character. This is why Braun is going to the Blitz store, because he's a trash character. Even the developers know he's a trash character. And none of his abilities benefit out of ISO 8. The special doesn't benefit, the ultimate doesn't benefit. They also don't benefit from healer ISO 8, fortified ISO 8. It doesn't really matter. It's actually convenient for you to make sure that your Braun lives as long as possible, but then that causes the problem, because if you're using him, for example, as fortifier to make sure that he has a barrier, to make sure that he survives, in Alliance Wars, fortifier is not as good for him, so it really depends on the game out. So I use him as a striker, even that his basic attack is trash. It's a double tap that you can use to remove deflects or evades on the enemies or something like that. Then I have Abomination as a striker. Abomination has 60% focus from Red Hulk passive. He has 120 focus if he's together with a full team, and he also gets additional focus on his special. And the ultimate doesn't really need focus, but it's okay. So he doesn't have to be a skirmisher. You could use him as a raider, but the way the ability works, the special, it does not work the way people think it works, because first he checks the negative effects, then he does the damage, and only after the damage is done, he actually does the crits. So he actually doesn't work the way people work. So in my opinion, because he has massive amounts of health, because he only does piercing damage, then the ISO 8 that you want to use is the striker. Because of that piercing damage on the basic, it really hurts the enemies, because you can just melt through them with Abomination. So striker is going to be the best option. Now in terms of Hulk, once again it comes down to, are you using this character? In which game mode are you using? For Alliance Wars, one option might be better, other options might be convenient. You can use Hulk as a skirmisher, but he doesn't apply any negative effects. It's just because he has the counters, and that might allow you to apply vulnerabilities to the enemies. Because he just does damage, he doesn't apply any negative effects. I like to use him as a striker because of the massive amount of health that he has. And at level 5, that's going to convert in additional damage to the enemies and also additional health to Hulk. In terms of She-Hulk, she applies a stun, so therefore I want to make sure that she has focus to apply that stun, so I have her as a skirmisher, and I use Red Hulk as a skirmisher. This is very controversial, but he applies negative effects to the enemies with his basic, with his special, and with his ultimate. His ultimate does bleed damage, but if you have him as a striker, that bleed damage from the gamma radiation is not influenced by striker. It's one of the few situations where the bleeds from the enemies are influenced by their own health rather than the base damage of the enemy. So if you have Red Hulk as a striker, the only damage you are increasing is from the special and from the basic. The gamma radiation is not affected by these. You can also use him as a raider. Once again, the gamma radiation is not going to be affected by the raider, but you might find convenient to use the raider for the special to apply more vulnerabilities to the enemies. Based on that same mindset, I use him as a skirmisher because we are applying vulnerabilities to the enemies as well. We are also applying vulnerabilities as well to the enemies whenever Red Hulk gets attacked because of the counter chance. And Red Hulk as a skirmisher with his basic can remove the taunts from other characters. He is faster, and it's very convenient to have a fast character to remove those taunts to make sure that then you can stun or copy the positive effects with Abomination or with Brawn. So in my opinion, this is extremely important to remove the taunts with the Red Hulk so you can attack the characters that actually matter. It's controversial for a lot of people. For me, it makes total sense. But once again, this is all based on the play style. And this is all based if you are using the full team or not. And yeah, there are many reasons why you want to use this ISO 8 setup. The only characters I have some problems with ISO 8 is Brawn, because I honestly don't know what to do with this guy because he's a trash character. I just use him as a striker, like I said, to remove some additional deflects. Okay, let's go to the last team. We have the Dead Seed, and the Dead Seed team, I like to use Dark Beast as a skirmisher. I think that makes sense. He assists every turn, and that allows him to triple tap with his teammates that are strikers. Then I use Magneto as a skirmisher because I want to make sure that the blind lands. If you apply the blind, you win. If you don't apply the blind, you lose. And based on that, it's very, very important that you have as much focus as possible on Magneto, and it's also convenient that you apply the Disrupt and Slow with his special, and with his basic you can also use it to clear positive effects from the enemies, because let's be honest, the multipliers of the damage of Magneto are very low. They are around 200%, and using a striker there, it doesn't make any sense. When you use a striker or raider, you want to make sure that your multipliers are as high as possible. Then we have Psylocke as a striker. She applies bleeds on her basic attack and ISO 8 attack. She applies defense down, and because she has so many counters, that's going to be extremely important. You could also use her as a skirmisher, but you want to balance out how many skirmishers and strikers you have. And when you have a character like Dark Beast or Nebula that apply skirmishers every time, the striker becomes more convenient. Then we have Archangel. Archangel, he has two options, striker or raider. Some people like raider. Doesn't make any sense for me. Whenever he kills enemies, he gives energy to his team, the Dead Seed. He gives energy to his other team, the Horseman team, and Apocalypse. So you want to make sure that Archangel does as much damage as possible. While he has a little bit increase on the crit chance, is not that big to make a difference. And on top of that, he also applies a ton of bleeds. So when the enemies die with the bleed damage, Archangel still gives energy, which is very, very convenient. And based on all of that, based on the fact that he has decent multipliers, based on the fact that he applies bleeds and so on, in my opinion, the only ISO 8 that you should use on him is the striker. Other thing about the raider is that it heals 3% of this max health, but the 3% only activates one time. If you are attacking 10 enemies, the healing is only going to happen one time, even if you crit on all 10 enemies. So keep that in mind, because it's not a massive amount of healing that you are going to get, and that's why I feel it's more important to give him the striker. Finally, we have Nemesis. And Nemesis, I like him as a striker. He applies a bunch of bleeds. He doesn't require a lot of focus to do what he does with his ultimate, and therefore I think the striker is going to be the best option, because he also steals health from the enemies and heals himself and his allies. So the more basics you do, the better, and that's why the striker is the best option. Okay, those are all the horseman characters. Now let's talk about the 3 original characters. And first off, we have Gastro. I like to use her as a striker because the double tap on the basic is very important, because you want to make sure that you apply negative effects to the enemies, like defense down. That will trigger a passive, and that's going to be important. Some people might say, oh, if you are applying negative effects, why not skirmisher instead? Well, it's because of her passive. Because her passive does multiple attacks, and because she gets also additional focus on her ultimate, she doesn't need as much focus as other characters. So yes, the skirmisher could be a possibility, but in my opinion, it gets more value if you use her as a striker. And the basic also hurts really bad and applies defense down for 2 turns, so it's just more convenient overall to have her as a striker. Then let's move on to the next character, and that's going to be Deadpool. And Deadpool, you can also use her as a striker because she also attacks with her passive, like Gastro. But the difference is that Gastro, she attacks whenever a character with defense down is attacked. And Gastro, she applies multiple defense downs. On Deadpool, it's not the case. She only attacks the enemies whenever an enemy dies. That means that if you have 10 characters, and if the 10 characters die, that's going to activate 9 times, because the last character does not count. But on Gastro, it can activate 100 times, because as long as the enemies have defense downs, it keeps activating and activating. So that means the value of Gastro as a striker is much higher than the value of Deadpool as a skirmisher. So I'm testing out, or I'm trying to use Deadpool as a skirmisher, because in raids it becomes very convenient for me. And you can see right here that Deadpool, she has a very trash focus, but the special ability of Deadpool, it is a winning condition. If you have a blind on a character and you can spread it, that is very important. So I like to use her as a skirmisher to spread the negative effects with her special. If you rather maximize her damage, it's okay to take her as a striker, because you are going to benefit from the basic, from the ultimate, and from the passive. So once again, this is based on your playstyle. If you don't find the special ability important, then use her as a striker. If you find her special ability extremely convenient, then use her as a skirmisher. And now we have the last character for unlocking Apocalypse. We have Spider Weaver, and Spider Weaver, she's a very important character because she does a bunch of stuffs. She applies negative effects with her basic, and she also does piercing damage. So bleeds plus piercing damage, that means striker. Then we also have the fact that whenever she kills someone, they do not revive. So striker is going to be important as well. With her special, she also heals up the enemies, so depending on the game mode, you can use her as a healer. And finally, we have the ultimate, and in my opinion, the ultimate is the most important ability because it applies stun and trauma in all game modes. So because, in my opinion, this is the most important ability for Spider Weaver, I use her as a skirmisher in most game modes. It's very important for you to learn that stun with trauma. Applying stun with traumas is extremely important, and if you don't have the focus to do that, you might lose the match. So I like to use her as a skirmisher to make sure that she always applies the trauma and that she always applies the stun. You can do this to Apocalypse, you can do this to Dormammu, you can do this to Doctor Doom. It's extremely important, it's a great winning condition. If you don't find that the stun with trauma is relevant enough, if you are facing a lot of Dormammus or a lot of characters that revive, then yes, go ahead and use her as a striker. Once again, this character is based on your playstyle, this character is based on your goals. I find the ultimate stun with trauma to be an extremely important winning condition, but if you find more convenient other abilities, you can use a striker instead. You might even find healer important because of the special, in case you are using her in raids or in Dark Dimension or something like that. But overall, in game, in my opinion, the best option is going to be the skirmisher. Okay, so those are all my isolate recommendations for all characters. We can also talk about Apocalypse because, sure, why not? In my opinion, I think people should use Apocalypse as a skirmisher. He has really trash focus, and the special and the ultimate require a lot of focus. You are going to apply trauma to the enemies, you are going to apply ability blocks and so on, so that's going to be extremely important to have him as a skirmisher. Because he also has assist chance and counter attack chance and so on, the skirmisher will also apply more vulnerabilities to the enemies, so it's up to you to decide. You might want to use Red Hulk instead to give vulnerabilities, or you can use Apocalypse instead. It's up to you to decide which character is going to be more important. Red Hulk to apply vulnerabilities, or Apocalypse to apply vulnerabilities, ability blocks and so on. His striker is also very important because he has drain on all his abilities, and the more drain you have, the more damage you do, the more you are going to heal up your character. So once again, this will come down to play style, but those are the two only options that I would recommend: skirmisher or striker, depending if you are prioritizing the negative effects and traumas and so on, or if you are prioritizing the healing and damage output of the character. So that's going to be the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed everything that you need to know in order to unlock Apocalypse. All my isolate choices, my final isolate choices for these characters. And once again, remember that this depends on the play style. There is no wrong answers. It all depends on where you are using these characters, what team setup you have available. Do you have enough skirmishers to apply negative effects and vulnerabilities? Do you have enough strikers to benefit out of those vulnerabilities? And do you have other characters that require some isolate to increase their survivability or something like that? So it's all subjective, but these are my choices. You guys let me know in the comments below if you disagree with any of the justifications I made, and if you have anything else in mind, let me know also in the comments below. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button, and if you found the video helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.